Now, of all the upcoming Star Wars series, the one I'm most excited for has got to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. However, at the same time, the one I'm by far the most nervous or worried about is also the Kenobi series. He's one of those characters I do not want to see them get wrong, not that they've ever got a character wrong before. Anyway, not only is Kenobi one of my personal favorite characters, but he's easily one of the best and most popular or beloved characters in all of Star Wars, thanks in large part to Ewan McGregor's portrayal of him in the prequels, which is a role he will of course be reprising in the upcoming Kenobi series, and is one of the reasons why I and many others are indeed very excited for this. We're excited to see him back playing Obi-Wan Kenobi and maybe acting as a sort of bridge between his version of the character and the Alec Guinness version in the original trilogy, though let's also not forget what James Arnold Taylor brought to the character in the Clone Wars animated series. But anyway, the big question around this show has got to be just what do you do with it? How do you make an entire series around a guy who presumably, or as far as we know, never leaves the deserts of Tatooine? And one idea or possibility I've thrown out there before is making it just as much about the hunt for Kenobi or Vader's hunt for Kenobi as it is about Kenobi himself. We do already know or have been told that Hayden Christensen will be playing Darth Vader, so there's a really good chance this could be something that happens. There's also the possibility, and I think this is also a likely to happen possibility, that Kenobi will be given a reason to leave Tatooine for a brief period of time. Which is not an idea I necessarily love, but one I do understand if they're going to do a whole series. This is, after all, Star Wars and not sitting around in the Desert Wars. And especially the more casual fan or average viewer, they're going to no doubt expect certain things beyond a guy in a desert meditating and trying to commune with his former master Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, I'd gladly watch that show, but I'm not sure every Star Wars fan would. So yeah, I do get them wanting to spice it up a little bit and make it a little more exciting by getting Kenobi off planet for some sort of adventure. I also get them wanting to add some stakes to this series overall, as much stakes as you can, considering we know the ultimate outcome of virtually everything important the show could involve. In fact, us knowing all that, or us knowing how the show has to end, basically, with Kenobi back in the desert and everything sort of set up for A New Hope, it makes me worry that they will focus quite a bit on the spectacle or doing or adding things to get attention and to excite the fans, rather than trying to make a story of actual substance around or about Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, adding things like another duel between Vader and Kenobi, which I won't be getting into here, but Kathleen Kennedy did say the show would have the rematch of the century between them, or maybe things like Obi-Wan going off to save Leia for some reason, which is the big rumor currently out there right now. In fact, that rumor says that Leia will be the impetus of the show, or the reason why everything is happening. And though it is just a rumor, let's discuss why that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the overall story, and then I'll later sort of contradict myself and explain how it maybe, possibly could make sense, but still wouldn't be needed. Okay, so let's start with the big problem of Leia being that which brings Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding, which is that Darth Vader is actively looking for Kenobi. We know he is the big one that got away, and the Jedi he'd love to find and kill above all others after everything that went down during Revenge of the Sith. In other words, the only thing Kenobi popping up somewhere would do is draw Vader's attention to it. It'd draw him to it like a moth to a flame. So unless somehow Vader found out about Leia and was already after her, which we know cannot be the case, then the only thing Kenobi going to save Leia from something else is going to do is draw attention to Leia. I mean, what would Vader think if, after 10 years of hiding, Obi-Wan suddenly appears to save the adopted daughter of a random senator? And I don't know what kind of threat or danger it could be that Obi-Wan would be needed for. I don't know how Leia, who's going to be around the age of 10 at this point, could get into that kind of trouble. Unless it's going to be something lame like she's kidnapped and held for ransom by some random new third party to the story, or somehow she's kidnapped by Jabba the Hutt to ransom and she's on Tatooine because of this, and that's how Kenobi gets involved in the first place, that he hears the daughter of Bail Organa has been taken by Jabba, and then he goes to save her, and I really hope I didn't just stumble onto the plot right there. Anyway, here, my point is that if Kenobi comes out of hiding to save Leia, wouldn't Vader want to know why? Wouldn't he want to know what's so special about this girl that Kenobi would come after her and risk being found himself? And Kenobi would know this too. He would know going after Leia would likely only end up doing more harm than good in the long run. Bail Organa would also know and understand all this, and would be unlikely to ask Obi-Wan for help with Leia because he wouldn't want the two linked in any way. And yes, I obviously know Bail eventually sends Leia to get Obi-Wan, which is how A New Hope starts, but going to get him and coming back to help deal with the Death Star is a lot different than him emerging to specifically go and save her, as if there is something important about her, as if there is a good reason why she needs to be saved. And speaking of all that, Leia's message to Obi-Wan in A New Hope doesn't make it seem like these are two people who have met before. She only mentions him serving her father in the Clone Wars, not that one time you saved my life. In other words, the message doesn't sound like she's talking to someone she knows. However here, and this is where I sort of contradict myself a little, there may be a piece of evidence in the original trilogy or something that could be construed as evidence if they're smart enough with the story, which is in question. Something that maybe suggests that Kenobi and Leia have met before, or have met since the day she was born, I should say, since Kenobi was there, though I don't know if you can really meet someone when you're an infant. Then again, Leia tells Luke in Return of the Jedi that she has memories of her real mother, and her birth was the only time she ever saw Padme, who died in childbirth, so maybe she remembers Kenobi too. But anyway, speaking of minor plot holes between the trilogies, in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke is running off to Cloud City to save his friends, Obi-Wan says, "That boy is our last hope," and Yoda replies, "No, there is another," and Yoda is of course referring to Leia, who Obi-Wan very much knows exists. Again, he was there when she was born, and was there when it was discussed what was to become of her, when Bail Organa said he would adopt and raise her. That then brings us to the question of, why would Obi-Wan say Luke is their only hope, considering he knows Leia is still out there? Well, it could be that he's met Leia since, and didn't sense that she's strong with the Force, and hence didn't consider her to be a hope should Luke fail. This would then cover up another sort of plot hole, that being why Vader never sensed that Leia was strong with the Force, and he of course had been in close proximity to her a couple times. He even oversaw her being tortured once. We can then just assume that Leia naturally or passively has an ability that masks her connection with the Force from others, which is, sure, a rather convenient Force ability for someone who needs to be hidden to end up with, but maybe that's exactly why she got it in the first place, from the Force. Either way, somehow then Yoda was able to see through it. Maybe he's encountered it before and knew how to see past it, and that's why he says, "No, there is another," because he's known all along Leia was strong with the Force, but it couldn't be detected. Or maybe somehow he's the one who made sure she couldn't be detected, that he made it so her powers went dormant until she was awakened by Luke in The Empire Strikes Back when he calls out to her. Or maybe somehow from afar, that's when Yoda ended the block on Leia's powers. And I know this is getting a bit much, but the fact remains that Vader never sensed anything from Leia, so it does seem as if she has some sort of way to mask her strong connection to the Force. However here, we could just as easily say or assume that Obi-Wan didn't sense the Force from Leia way back when she was born, and did from Luke, hence that's why he took Luke and protected him, with the hope or plan of training him someday. He doesn't need to have seen Leia in the meantime to confirm what he knew back then, though I suppose it's possible Force potential isn't known right at birth, that it takes a couple of years. One way or another here, I'm not saying I'm opposed to the idea of seeing Leia in this series at all. I think we'll see Bail Organa at some point, not saying in connection directly to Kenobi, but we'll at least see him and hence maybe see Leia too. I'm just saying I don't know or think the series needs to be about saving her. I don't think we need a link between her and Kenobi, and as I've been arguing, I think Obi-Wan would actively try and avoid that unless maybe Vader himself was after her, which we know isn't possible. There's also then the problem that Kenobi seems to be under the impression that Leia isn't Force sensitive, so would you leave Luke unprotected to go and save her? Do you risk the one you know to be Force sensitive to save the one that isn't? I know it sounds harsh, but sometimes we do what we must. Do you risk Vader finding you too, and being killed by him, and then Luke's unprotected for good? I don't know, I just feel like this is reaching for a story when there are other better ways to get Kenobi off planet, if that's what you really feel like the series needs him to do, which I think they do. Ways that wouldn't involve him putting Leia at risk by going after her, as odd as that sounds. Then again, maybe these rumors are completely wrong, maybe the show will have nothing to do with her, and she'll only have a cameo at most. Either way, I just hope, beyond hope, that they find a way to do this series right. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about all this. Could you see Obi-Wan leaving Tatooine to go and save or protect Leia? Or does that not make sense? Would he not leave Luke behind for one? And would he not fear drawing attention to Leia for another? Whatever you think, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.